diddly squat farm shop and it's heaving with people.
So here we are again, the Deddington Arms. Coffee and sandwiches. The question is, why are we here again?
We're on the way to Cheltenham to visit Mum and Dad, and then we're going to visit a couple of lovely Cotswold villages on our way back.
This is going to be our mini tour of the Cotswolds, but first stop tonight, Cheltenham. So if you're going to stay in the Pemier Inn in Cheltenham, what can you expect?
We've stayed at the Pemier Inn on the main Lansdowne Road in Cheltenham many times before, as it's convenient for my parents to get to. The location's fine for us, but it is a cab ride to the town centre, shops and restaurants. The great thing about the Pemier Inn is it's consistent. The room is basic, but always clean, spacious and comfortable, with coffee and tea making facilities, and we always make the most of having a tub in the bathroom. The staff are always helpful and friendly and recognise us now as we've been so often. There is a TGI Fridays just across the car park, and the hotel also has a small breakfast restaurant. Before the COVID restrictions, the breakfast was hard to beat really, with lots of unlimited hot and cold buffet choices. Since the pandemic, as with most cafes and restaurants, it is now table service only, and whilst the lovely lady serving is friendly and helpful, the meeting and greeting, as well as order taking, delivering food and drink and cleaning tables is really just too much for one person, and the wait for service is too long. There's always lots of parking available, and we've always been able to leave the bikes right outside the hotel where there is CCTV. Considering the very reasonable costs, we think the Pemier Inn is a good choice.
Today's short trip was going to take us to the delightful chip in Campden for lunch, but first we're going to track down Jeremy Clarkson's farm, or more specifically, the Diddly Squat Farm Shop. I wonder. The beauty of riding through the Cotswolds is it's full of quintessentially English villages. Bourton-on-the-Water is a beautiful village. It straddles the River Windrush and has been described as the Little Venice of the Cotswolds. As we approached the farm shop, it was clear that we might just have underestimated how popular this place was going to be. Jeremy Clarkson is a bit like Marmite. You either love him or hate him, and fans of Top Gear might be surprised to know that in 2008 he bought his own farm, which he renamed Diddley Squat Farm, on the basis that's what he reckoned you made out of farming. Fans of his, including us of course, will have been glued to his latest TV programme Clarkson's Farm, where during lockdown he opened his own shop to sell the produce from the farm, hence the Diddley Squat Farm Shop. So while we were in the Cotswolds, we thought we'd drop by and see what all the fuss was about. The first thing to notice was the obviously huge car park, made out of a field, flattened, specifically covered in straw because the locals had complained that all the traffic was clogging up the roads. The second point is, it's not really biker friendly. Although it's pretty easy to ride on, today was reasonably dry. I can imagine if it got a little bit soggy, it might be a different proposition, especially when you want to park. Okay, so here looks like a good spot. Time to get off and have a look around. First of all, trying to back it into the space was a little problematical. Unfortunately, the heavily laden triple black just wasn't playing ball.
Farm shop, and it's heaving with people, and it's great to stop, but the bikes are sinking in here and the gravel's a bit tough and it's heaving with people.
Our original plan was to stop, have a look around, browse in the shop, maybe grab a coffee or a burger or something, but to be honest, I'm not a big fan of queuing or standing in lines, as our American cousins would say, so this was obviously going to be a brief stop. But one thing you've got to hand it to Clarkson, he certainly knows how to make money.
Having watched this series, I was really glad that we managed to visit. Like Bri, I'm not too happy about standing in a queue, so I wouldn't have waited to shop, but it was really worth the visit, and certainly would recommend anybody who's watched Clarkson's Farm to have a tootle past.
So that was Diddley Squat, folks, and I'm still amazed at just how many people it attracts. Anyway, time to move on for a coffee stop in the delightful town of Campden. And then off to our final stop of the day, Bibury.
Caught behind Venetian blinds, out of reach for the city lights. This ain't where I belong. Hey, look at me, man, what I become.
For many people, Campden is the quintessential Cotswolds town. In 1970, the whole of the High Street and much of the rest of the town was officially designated a conservation area.
What I thought was gone was sitting in my pocket in plain sight all along. I think it's time for me to go burn all bridges. All I know, I got lost along the way, fell between the foam, pulling stitches. Time to let go, so come what may.
The A429 takes you past the old prison, formerly a house of correction built in the 18th century, and now a place to grab a bite to eat and grab a coffee. And so we arrived at our final destination of the little village of Bibury. It's a small village with a population of not much more than 600. As a consequence, you're limited in the kind of accommodation you can get. So we had an opportunity to try our first Airbnb. Small house with a big welcome. Well, this is a small house. Here we go. Very clean. Let's have a look.
Bathroom with shower.
Bathroom and shower, TV. Very well, folks, the delightful Cotswold village of Bibury. William Morris, the 19th century artist, described Bibury as the most beautiful village in England. Arlington Row is a pretty set of honey-coloured Grade 1 listed cottages that date all the way back to the 14th century. It's been said that Arlington Row is the most photographed street in the whole of England. They were originally built back in the 1380s as a monastic wool storehouse. The storehouse was later converted into weavers' cottages in the 17th century. And amazingly, people actually live in these cottages. The National Trust still owns them and they lease them to a select group of tenants. Not surprisingly, the street is featured in many Hollywood blockbusters, but most famously Stardust and Bridget Jones' Diary. The American businessman Henry Ford was so taken by Arlington Row, he tried to buy the whole of it and dismantle it and stone by stone and then transport it and rebuild it back in his estate in Michigan. Well, why not if you got the money? You often see a lot of Japanese tourists in Bibury, and that's because in 1921 Emperor Hirohito visited the village on his grand tour of Europe, and he was so impressed by it that he raved about it when he returned home. Because the people believed that Hirohito was a living god, it's been considered a spiritual place by Japanese ever since. Looks like we found the perfect place for dinner tonight. The Swan Hotel, an 18th century coaching inn. Excellent. table for dinner tonight at the Swan Hotel. What time is it?
6:30.
6:30.
You can
Excellent.
wear shorts if you want.
So that was Bibury, folks. A beautiful little village. We've had a look around. Now we're going back, get changed, and coming back down for a beer and dinner at the Swan.
We've ridden past the Swan a few times during our trips and thought it was somewhere to get dinner in a nice location. It was only when we got there we realised it was more fine dining than pub grub and was really quite expensive.
This is the main course, which is
Short rib.
So as you can see, it rained in the night. Forecast today is for thunderstorms. So after our one night in our Airbnb, we are off to the Deddington Arms for breakfast and then home.
So, how would we rate our first Airbnb experience?
Our accommodation in Bibury is described on the website as the small house with the big welcome and looks very much as though it's a garage converted into a small annex. It was the first Airbnb we've used on a trip, so we were keen to see how it worked out. It was certainly small, and it's actually really a room with an ensuite rather than a house. It has no hanging space at all for clothing, so that could be a problem if you needed to dry wet gear. I know Bibury well and perhaps naively imagined it would be located just off the pretty Chocolate Box main road. It is actually at the end of an estate and is a good 15-minute brisk walk through the housing estate to the centre of the village, where the trout farm and the Swan Hotel and Restaurant are located. There is a microwave and a fridge, but we chose to eat out rather than self-cater. We didn't meet the host, but she was quick to respond to any questions we had, and as you can see, there's private parking just outside the building, albeit on pretty deep gravel.
This big black cloud is coming down. Falling angels all around. A warm breeze from the subway underground. Snow is falling heavily over town. Walking backwards in the snow.
Burford, with its medieval bridge, old stone houses and attractive Tudor and Georgian frontages, is justifiably one of the most picturesque towns in England. It's often referred to as the gateway to the Cotswolds. It was originally a fortified Anglo-Saxon ford which later grew to be an important regional crossroads and wealthy wool town.
There's a winding road ahead of me. I can't figure out where it goes, but if I try, I can make it home. And if I stand by what I know is real, not wander off on some byway, I should be fine. I'll be home to stay. Reaching out to find a place where I can feel a little space.
So that was the end of yet another of our mini Cotswold trips. I know I'm probably biased because I grew up here, but the reason we keep coming back is, rain or shine, there's something so special about the Cotswolds.
I'd